Now they're on a 2-game slide, and we're starting to hear rumors about Gisele and Brady and divorce lawyers and this and that. And Tom Brady's taking 11 days off in training camp to deal with personal stuff. And we hear he's off in Europe somewhere on some yacht. It's like
Tom Brady fucked up. He fucked up big time then. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nenad.
I am Jared Smith.
And guys, we got a big football show for you today. We'll be talking top NFL storylines, and I have a lot to say about college football's rankings. As usual, I don't agree. So I give you my top 15 rankings at the end of the show today. And you can agree or disagree with me, but I'm right. I know I am.
Probably disagree, but it's okay. Probably disagree.
Exactly, and that's the spirit of debate that Jared and I present. And if you saw last week, a lot of debating went on with our host or our guest host, Alex Silva. Thank you again, Alex, for being on the show. Again, it's still applicable because the MLB season isn't over, and really even during the playoffs, we can still talk about this. Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani. Go check out the video. I presented the full clip of our arguments about why Alex thinks Aaron Judge is the MVP and I think Shohei Ohtani. So that's still up there. And if you want to see Alex Silva talk about his Denver Broncos and us just generally talk about football, I think most of it still applies. Go watch that show. It was about less than 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago on the dot when we did the show. But a lot of it still applies. For this show, we're going to be talking strictly football. No baseball on this show yet. There's still a lot of unknowns as of today, Tuesday, recording about the wild card series and who's going to play in the actual playoffs when the division series starts. So we will present that on our next podcast or a separate podcast next week. That will not be on this one. So strictly football today. And Jared Smith, unfortunately, I want to talk about some bad news. This happened last Thursday. A day after we were kind of presenting some stuff for our podcast, Tua Tagovailoa. It's been the biggest news story in the NFL that's off the field. He was concussed for the second time in 5 days or 4 days, whatever you want to call it. He was concussed clearly on Sunday against the Bills and then was concussed again Thursday in a very serious and hard to look at injury, live on Amazon Prime. Jared Smith, your first thoughts about this whole Tua situation and what you thought initially when it happened the second time?
Well, I mean, Nick, was he concussed twice, right? Because the Dolphins and their medical staff said that Tua had a back injury, right? And said that he was never concussed. So, I mean, you're spewing out misinformation right now, okay? Tua was not concussed twice. It was only once, and it happened against the Bengals. That's complete bullshit, okay? You don't have to be a football fan. You could have never watched football before. If you saw that game between the Dolphins and the Bills when Tua got whiplash basically and then stood up and was stumbling around, it does not take a doctor to understand that Tua was completely routed. He was seeing stars, okay? There is no way in hell that he should have came back in that game, irregardless of what the protocols were or what they could potentially be after what we've seen with Tua. But yes, no, he was concussed twice within a 4 or 5 day period, and listening to former athletes and some doctors, they say that a lot of times the second concussion is actually the worst, depending on when it happens, because your brain and your body hasn't had time to get over the first concussion, right? So more than likely, Tua had a concussion that Sunday against the Bills, and then 4 days later, he gets a second concussion. There's no way that his brain had time to fully recover. So thankfully, it seems like he's okay, right? Like he was released from the hospital that night in Cincinnati, traveled back home with the team, and supposedly he's doing well, according to Coach McDaniels. But I think they avoided a very scary situation. And now what's happening is the NFL is being put on blast, right? Like the NFL and their protocols, the NFLPA is coming full throttle and saying things need to change, right? And we've already seen it. We've already seen concussions that have happened from this past Sunday's games to players, and they have already been ruled out for this upcoming week. Like, teams aren't really taking a chance anymore on, oh, well, we're going to let him go through the protocols and see how they do. It's like, no. Like, until this kind of dies down, if you get concussed, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be out that next week.
Yeah, no. And I think this is Jared, a lot of times just in life, a bad thing has to happen for really good things to happen. And I think that unfortunately, or fortunately, Tua was concussed very, very badly, but he's okay. As right now, he's not dead, which is essentially what you want to not happen at the fullest extent, right? We don't want a player dying on the field, which, in my opinion, after seeing what happened to Tua and understanding how concussions work now through research, Tua Tagovailoa could have honestly passed away in Cincinnati on Thursday. So that obviously would have provided change, but at the expense of a star NFL player passing away strictly because some dumbass in that the Dolphins hired allowed him to play and thought that the play on the field was more important than a player's life. So as of right now, Tua Tagovailoa is okay. Now, we'll get into the discussion whether Tua should play this season or when he should play again this season later. But, I think for right now, like you're saying, Jared, there's going to be positive stuff that comes from this, which is ultimately what we want. Now, I will say this. It was hard to watch on Sunday. Cameron Brate clearly get concussed, stay in the game for a couple plays, get hit again pretty hard, and then at halftime they go, yeah, he's concussed. And for me, I was like, well, what the fuck? Like, come on. So I think after seeing that, a lot of people talking about that, and then Tua obviously Thursday, I really don't think we're going to see a lot of players that are clearly concussed continue to play that game and then most likely miss the next week. And I think this is honestly, the NFL needs to do this. They need to go in and they need to say, hey, let's talk to some neuroscience guys. Let's come up with a compromise because, a guy getting concussed badly and telling him he can't play for the rest of the season, there's a lot of money on the line. And I know that's not a good thing to say, but it's hard for, I think, a doctor to say a guy can't play for the rest of the season after one concussion, right? We've seen it in history that, guys have been able to get over a concussion in a couple weeks and then they're fine and nothing else happens, right? So, but what the NFL needs to really do is come up with a system where if a guy gets concussed, can't play that game, can't play next week, sorry, for your safety, And I think that's what has to happen here. And whether it's you absolutely can't return to that game, and that's the compromise, or it turns into you can't return to that game and you can't play the next week, I'm fine with that. Yes, I know that if Tom Brady gets hurt in the wild card playoff round, he gets concussed, and he can't play in that game, he can't play the next game, sorry. Trying to save your life, bro. We're trying not to make this Junior Seau. We're trying not to make this Javon Belcher, right? We're trying to save people, Aaron Hernandez, right? We're trying to save people's lives here. So I don't really care about your fandom of a team for one particular game. If it ends up, making you eliminated from the playoffs, that so be it. It's 1 year, right?
Let's be real. Let's be real. If this is Tom Brady we're talking about, and we're talking about a playoff game, Tom Brady's playing. All right. I don't care what you got to say. This is Tom Brady. He's still one of the faces of the NFL. That Tom Brady's in his own echelon. Patrick Mahomes in his own echelon. Those type of dudes, somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to get on the field, right? So, sure. Unfortunately, I think there are different rules depending on the position that you play potentially, and depending on who you are and your name status. Right. And so obviously Tua being a starting quarterback, there's only 32 of those positions in the world. He is not of the status of Tom Brady. And because of what we saw just 4 days earlier, I think it gives us even more, cause for concern. But make no mistake, if this is the playoffs and we're talking about Tom Brady, that fool's going to be out for the next week. Right. I would put money on that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying he should, but he's going to be out there. So,
well, no, and Jared, I'm glad you're saying this, and I know that you want to have the ultimate future of a human being like that's your ultimate hope with this. But you're not wrong. Like, as a Cardinals fan, you being a Cowboys fan, this is hard with the Cowboys because their damn backup wins every game. But let me just say, I'll throw it out there. Kyler Murray or CeeDee Lamb, right? You're gonna want that guy as a fan, and even as an organization. You get concussed, you leave the game, you're okay. The neurological stuff on you is fine. It's okay to play in that next game, right? That's what we've all been kind of conditioned to think, I believe. And what you said at the beginning of this podcast is that the second concussion is always the worst one. And that's, what you're saying in that is because someone gets a concussion and then they play a couple days later or whatever, even if it's Sunday to Sunday, they get that second concussion and that's where it really gets bad, right? And so I think at least this rule I'm talking about or whatever the NFL can come up with of you have to sit out the next game, it limits the chance for that second concussion to happen because your brain's okay at that point. And a new concussion would just be a new concussion. And yes, that's not good, ultimately, multiple concussions, but clearly what we're doing right now is worse than that, right? Allowing guys to play 6 days later, 4 days later, 7 days later with a concussion, that's not better than giving them a full, 2 weeks to recover, right? That's just what I think. And I think it needs to be implemented in college and it needs to be implemented in high school. And yes, I'm sorry, guys. I understand that there's limited games to play. And some players are battling for that scholarship. And some players are battling for that NFL draft pick. Doesn't matter. In long term, if you continue to get concussed, not only are you not going to make those higher levels, but you might not make it to 40. Or you might not make it to 50. And your family's going to be really sad. So, I know that's a negative thing to say, and people don't want to hear that on the sports talk show. But like that's what we have to do. I don't want to see Tua this happen to a guy. I don't want Kyler to get 2 concussions in 2 weeks and never play for the Cardinals again. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen to our number one special teams guy either, or our long snapper, or DeAndre Hopkins, right? That's all I'm saying. But Jared, you make a good point. Big business, right? Big ratings. Come playoff time, things change. Remember COVID? What happened to COVID last year in the playoffs, Jared? COVID didn't exist.
Huh? COVID what? What is COVID? What are you talking about?
Yeah, you remember?
What is COVID? I don't even know.
That was a long time ago.
I don't even know. No, here's the thing. Here's the thing, too. I don't have an ounce of faith in the NFL that they're going to get this right. And I don't think there is a 100% success rate or there is a clear path as to, the correct steps to take, because obviously every hit is different. Every person, every player is different in how their body will react to a concussion, right? And how quickly or not quickly they can recover from it. But here's the thing, Nick, over the last couple of years, the NFL has implemented things to where each game there are people literally sitting up in skyboxes that their only job is to take binoculars, and every time a big hit happens, they're supposed to look at a player. And if they think that a player is concussed or, stumbling or something, they are supposed to buzz down to the field and get that player off the field, right? Each NFL team has an independent doctor, right, aside from the organization, so they try to be unbiased, who is there in that in that profession to check on players, right? So like the NFL has taken steps, whether it has been by their own ruling or by the NFLPA coming and saying you guys have to do this, but like there have been steps taken, and yet we're still in this predicament. Like we're still talking about this, and the NFL is still doing things. So I don't have a lot of faith that whatever the NFL decides to do, whatever rules they decide to change and implement, that it's going to have a major effect, because we have clearly seen that a player can, in 2 separate cases, like we were obviously talking about Tua, and like you're obviously talking about tight end Cameron Brady from the Bucs on Sunday Night Football, have clearly looking a little shaken up. And once again, you don't need to be a freaking doctor to see that, right? You have your 2 eyes and you can clearly see that. And they have both been able to return to the same game before being taken out again, right? So my trust level that the NFL is going to actually get this right and they're actually really going to care about the player and the person and not just the on-field product is slim to none.
Well, and Jared, and that's what the NFL does need to go in and obviously investigate this, because we have two different organizations who hired a person, and that person did the worst job they could. They literally failed at their job, right? Like if you're a firefighter and you go in and you just refuse to put out the fire, you did the worst possible job, and you let multiple deaths and a building fall down and all this stuff, and just because you did the wrong things, you failed, right? If you're a construction worker and you build up a building and then all of it just falls down at the end of it because you didn't do it right, you failed. It's the same thing. These guys have binoculars, are looking at binoculars of a guy who they think might be concussed, and they just said, nah, I don't think he is. And they're just fucking wrong. They're wrong. So what I think the NFL needs to do is they need to go in and hire those guys for those teams. Because clearly, and I'll get to this in a second, some teams going out and hiring guys, I don't trust them, okay? And the Miami Dolphins are probably team number one that if you said, hey, they just hired a guy to do this, and he's not part of the organization, he wasn't vetted by the NFL, I go, well, he's probably going to do something wrong, right? Like, and then he got fired, right? And the Miami Dolphins were telling Brian Flores to lose, and so I think, Jared, is this more? Is it right to blame the NFL, or is it more this is just a Miami Dolphins thing? Like they're just a terrible organization that just doesn't care about their players or their fans, because we've seen the last year now. It's come out that their owner didn't give a fuck about the team and said, let's lose every game. Potentially hired racistly, and also now hires an independent doctor, and that guy just ends up almost killing a player on the field because he doesn't do his job right. So is it right to blame the NFL fully for this, or do we have to put more blame on the Miami Dolphins?
It's 50-50 to me. And here's the thing, and this is what I first think of when you pose that question, Roger Goodell and the NFL, they only have so much power. Roger Goodell is a puppet. There are 32 owners who are 32 billionaires who own Roger Goodell and tell him what to do. And behind the scenes in their meetings or whatever, say, hey, this is what you can implement and this is what you can't. So Jerry Jones or the Miami Dolphins owner, Ross, isn't going to let Roger Goodell just do whatever he wants and make whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's both, because obviously each owner is not going to let someone else come in and tell them what to do. And then the NFL only has so much power, even though we call them the shield, right? That shield is only as good as the 32 owners, as strong as the 32 owners want to make it. So it's on both sides, but at the end of the day, it's on these owners who have full say of their team on who to bring in, who not to bring in, who gets vetted, who gets properly vetted, right? Yeah. The NFL can only do so much. Now, the NFLPA, the Players Association,
there you go.
That is who, and I'm not saying they haven't done a good job, but that is who can really step in from an outside perspective, who I would say has more of an emphasis on the actual players' health as men and not just as commodities, not just athletes on the field. It would be, my faith would need to be put in the NFLPA Players Association in order to get something done, have something facilitated as far as getting legitimate protocols in place and legitimate vets in place. Because I'm not trusting any organization, and I'm not trusting Roger Goodell and the NFL to get things done.
Good point. NFLPA does need to do better. Okay, so last part of this, Jared, I'll pose this to you. Chris Nowinski, who is a former WWE superstar, has been on top of a lot of these concussion issues. It stems from Chris Benoit back in the day. If you don't know about that story, look it up. It's a professional wrestler with severe CTE that ended up, unfortunately, murdering his entire family. And a lot of people blame the CTE on it. He was in he was in the WWE back then. He quits because all this stuff happens. Multiple other reasons why, but he's now a forefront guy for football and other sports for concussions and all that stuff. He said Tua should not take another snap the rest of the season. The Dolphins have announced Tua will not play this week. Jared Smith, are you somewhere in the middle? Do you agree with Chris Nowinski? Do you agree with other experts saying that this should be longer? What do you think should happen with Tua Tagovailoa in 2022?
Listen, I mean, I ain't no doctor. Like, I don't know. Like, am I glad that he's not playing this week? Yes. Am I glad that the Dolphins have already ruled him out? Like, they ruled him out yesterday. So they ruled him out 6 days before Sunday even comes, before they face the New York Jets. So, yes, I'm happy that he's not playing. But here's where I'm a little skeptical. If Tua wouldn't have gotten the first concussion against the Dolphins or against the Bills, and the first concussion would have only happened against the Bengals, would Tua still be ruled out for the game against the Jets? Like, this story has blown up so much.
Of course not. Yeah.
This story has blown up so much, right? That you're right. It's unfortunate that like a bad thing would have to happen to someone in order for light to be shed on it. But, you know, and obviously number one is we hope Tua is okay, right? It seems like he's been back in the building. We already mentioned he flew home that night with the team. He was able to sleep in his own bed. He's been back in the Miami Dolphins facilities, getting treatment, getting looked at, right? Going through the whatever protocols are currently in place. So number one is hopefully Tua is okay mentally, physically, all those things. I'm glad he's not playing this upcoming Sunday. I would not be surprised one damn bit if week 6 comes and Tua is back suited up. Now, once again, is his brain going to be fully healed and fully mentally ready to go? I don't freaking know. I hope so. But in realistically, how long does it take to get over a concussion? I'm not sure. I know that I've been concussed one time. That was over like 10 years ago playing high school football. And I seemed fine, you know, within a couple of days, right? But like I said, I think everyone's different. So I think that here's the thing. Tua needs to be real with himself. And obviously he's the quarterback, the leader of that team. They have a pretty decent squad. Like, he wants to be out there playing, right? Every player, every athlete wants to be out there on the field or on the ground, you know, wherever and playing. So Tua needs to be real with himself and be truthful to the doctors and the team and say, hey, man, this is how I'm really feeling. Like, if you're feeling good and you're passing the test and everything, all right, cool. But also, if you're not feeling good, like if you have any doubt in the back of your head, if you got a voice in the back of your head saying, man, I'm like 80, 85%, I'm not 100%, but I'm still good to go. Like, Tua is really the only one other than getting medical information that can say and tell the world how he's feeling, right? All the doctors can check him out and look him out. The Dolphins can do all these tests, but it's really on Tua, I think, and his teammates in the organization to really make the right decision. And if there is 1 ounce of doubt, then hold Tua back. But what I see more than likely happening is Tua is going to miss week 5, and then Tua is going to be back week 6 as long as he passes the current protocols or whatever is currently in place. And I see Tua coming back week 6.
And Jared, that would be 10 days. That'd be about 16 days from the second concussion. So here's what I would do with Tua's concussion issues. I'm not a doctor either, but I look at their schedule. They play the Jets. He's already been ruled out. Here's all the next games. Vikings, Steelers at home. Both those teams at home. At the Lions, at the Bears. Browns at home. Bye week. Texans at home. December 4th, at 49ers. At Chargers, at Bills. So here's what I would do. You're already 3-1. You have a very, very solid backup in Teddy Bridgewater. You have talent all over the field on offense and defense. I keep him out this week, next week, against the Steelers, against the Lions, against the Bears, against the Browns, bye week, bring him back for a tune-up against the Texans, and then you keep him the rest of the season. Because not only will that most likely clear him of concussion syndrome, Man, this man's body's going to be ready for the playoff run, right? Yeah, they might lose to the Steelers, on Sunday Night Football. Yeah, they might lose to the Lions. But, you're going to have a winning record or at least be 500 by that point. Or just in those games, you'll have a winning record. Okay, so I know the AFC is tough, but, they got through the gauntlet of their schedule already up until December 4th because the 49ers are a very solid team. The Chargers are a very solid team. The Bills are a very solid team. Not to mention, I didn't even realize this, they play the Packers on Christmas. So that's 4 games in a row. Why not just keep Tua out up until at least November 27th after your bye? That's about 6-7 weeks off. I'm not a doctor, but Jared, you're telling me 2 months away, you're still going to have concussion syndromes? I think that's the safest way to where you're going to have the best performance come the playoffs and the best possible outcome for Tua. I'm basing it completely on the schedule. I don't think the Jets, Vikings, Steelers, Lions, Bears, Browns, and Texans are going to serve that much of a difficulty to you to where you have to play a starting quarterback where a lot of guys already even had questions anyways, right? At least you know what you're going to get with Teddy. You just game plan for him, and then you go to the bye and you go, hey, Tua, you're the quarterback again. You get the Texans, who are awful, at home in Miami. Sun's out, all that stuff. And then, 49ers, Chargers, Bills, Packers. Fuck. We need you for those. Okay? But let's get ready. Your body's fine. All that. Right, Jared? It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting concept. Keep him out for 2 months.
It sounds logical. And I hate to say this, but here's where my mind goes when you say that. Obviously, like I said, he's a competitor. He's a player. He wants to play. And it's up to himself to be truthful with himself. It's up to his teammates who see him every day in the locker room to check in, right? We've heard former players come out since then. We've heard Richard Sherman. We've heard other players come out and say, it's also on us who see these guys every single day. If we see something weird, we can go up, especially if you're a veteran, right? If you're a captain of the team or something like that, you go be like, hey man, you good? Are you really good? I'm not a doctor. You don't have to lie, right? So Tua's got to be truthful with himself. The team has to be eyes 24/7 on Tua. But here's where my mind goes. Tua's in his 4th year, right? 4th year in the league, 4th year in the NFL. Third or 4th year, I forget. But but here's where I'm getting at. Tua is playing for a contract extension. Tua is playing to get the bag.
Okay, Jared, can I interrupt you really quickly with this though?
Okay.
I think that my scenario, because I know where you're going. I know you're going that you want the stats to rack up all that stuff. But in my scenario, if you run the gauntlet with all those teams and do very well and then have a deep playoff run, I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, you got concussed and took 2 months off. You're injury prone. Nobody thinks a concussion means you're injury prone. At least 99% of people, minus concussion doctors, right? I think all of us go, if a guy gets concussed for a couple weeks, that doesn't go in the injury prone thing. When Dak slams his finger on somebody's helmet, I don't go, oh, he's injury prone. No, I go, he smacked his fucking hand on the guy's helmet and broke his finger. If I would have done that, I would have broke it too. I'm not injury prone. Tom Brady could have broke his finger on some guy's helmet, right? So I personally don't think that if he has success in the playoffs, that would mean his contract extension wouldn't happen. Now continue. I personally don't think. I think the playoffs are more important.
I don't disagree with you. Problem is, Tua's first couple of years in the league were average at best, right? It's not like he freaking blew Miami away, led him to the playoffs. They automatically knew he was going to be the guy, and they gave him a contract extension last year. Tua is having to take every single game, every 17 games of this regular season as an audition to say, this is why you guys need to give me a long-term 5-year, $200+ million contract, just like all the other great quarterbacks are getting in the league. So from that standpoint, every single game that you miss is, in a sense, a missed audition. And like I said, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying, but this is where, again, the team needs to protect Tua. And I'm not saying Tua is this type of guy, but like I said, these athletes are competitors. They want to play. And when you know that you have money on the line, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, that could entice someone to want to rush back and get on the field and pump those stats up so that you get that contract. So I think that could be a factor as well in, maybe in the back of Tua's mind of saying, all right, I'm going to miss this game against the Jets. And then come week 6 against the Vikings at home, I'm trying to get myself out there so I can get paid. And I'm not just talking about a franchise tag, 1 year, $30 million contract. I'm talking about a 5-year, 200 whatever plus $1 million contract, like Deshaun Watson got, like Josh Allen. You know what I'm saying? So Tua's playing for a contract. It's not like he already got paid last year or he's already proven himself. First couple of years, pretty garbage, right? We still don't know if Tua can be the guy. Miami's giving him a chance right now, but I think we got to take that into consideration as well, as far as potentially when Tua would come back himself. Then hopefully the team and the doctors and the NFL will do the right thing, which, like I said, I don't have faith in, and keep him out until he's fully ready. We'll see.
Okay. And to go to your point, I was mentioning injury prone because that's been the knock on him. Small guy, gets hit hard. And it was so funny, too, because I was driving up to Northern California to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday. And it was a long drive. So I had to be like, Megan, we're not going to talk the whole time. I need to listen to some sports. I need to do some of my research here for this Thursday Night Football. No, okay. Love you, Megan. Happy birthday. But what they were talking about, and this is some very famous sports broadcasters, sports commentators. They were talking about how Tua was injury prone because he had a back injury from the Sunday game. They were still not even acknowledging that was the concussion, right? They were saying that Tua's small, he's injury prone because he hurt his back on Sunday. So again, the injury prone, concussion or not, to your point, he is battling for that contract. I just don't think it will affect him. Now, I did say that's what I would do with Tua. You, Jared, think that he's coming back against the Vikings?
Yeah.
I'll go one more game. I think they go, obviously he's out for the Jets. You know what, guys? We'll keep him out of the Minnesota game. Sunday Night Football. Kenny Pickett's 2-0 as a starter. They're coming in, a cold weather team coming into warm weather Miami. Sunday night, they'll go, hey, he's going to be game time decision. We'll see where his head's at. It's 8:20 on the East Coast. It's the longest possible they can wait. I'll go Sunday Night Football. 2 weeks from now, that's when Tua will actually return. But what I would do with him is not bring him back until November 27th after the bye against the Texans as they tune up for that 4-game gauntlet against the 49ers, Bills, Packers, and Chargers. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I'm with you.
Let's move on. We're gonna stay in Florida here. Okay. Big news coming out of the entertainment circles that Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen have hired divorce lawyers. Now, Jared Smith, we talked about this before the show. Normally, we wouldn't talk about subjects like this. We don't go off and talk about what Odell Beckham Jr. is doing off the field, right? Unless it affects what's going on the field. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the last 2 years. Tom Brady has not been the Tom Brady of the last 2 years. They got smoked by the Chiefs on Sunday. Really bad. Don't look at that score. They got fucking killed. Okay? Jared Smith, does this divorce, does this at-home atmosphere, does what's going on with Gisele and Tom Brady have a direct effect on what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 2-2 to start the season?
Hell yeah, it does. And anyone that doesn't think so is an idiot. And I will say that to you if you don't think so as well. And I love you and you're my co-host. But listen, here's the thing. Tom Brady's 20 whatever plus years of playing in the NFL. How many times have we really heard about him talking about during the football season? How many times have we heard him talking about family or talking about off the field topics that don't have to do with the regular season or whatever team he is currently getting ready to play for? Yeah, that was a big goose egg donut zero. And how many times this offseason, since he unretired and came back, and up to this point now, week 5, have we heard Tom Brady actually answer questions from reporters about off the field issues as far as family and those types of things go, right? Like, clearly his mind is not 150% wrapped around being the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm not saying I blame the dude for it, but here's the thing. When you win 7 Super Bowls and you are on the pedestal that you are as the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, like, there is a certain standard. And for Tom Brady to unretire and come back against his wife's will, and I'm sure against his kids and the rest of his family as well, right? Like, you have to come in with that exact same mindset that won you those 7 Super Bowls, right? Because if you're coming in with anything less, you are not only doing yourself a disservice, but we are seeing that you're doing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a disservice. Now, they come out in week 1 and they whoop on my Cowboys 19-3. And they look like, oh shit, they're about to run the gauntlet again, and it's going to be the Bucs and the Bills in the Super Bowl. Now they're on a 2-game slide, and we're starting to hear rumors about Gisele and Brady and divorce lawyers and this and that, and Tom Brady's taking 11 days off in training camp to deal with personal stuff, and we hear he's off in Europe somewhere on some yacht. You know, it's like, I don't knock, or I don't think that Tom Brady is obviously not focused on football, but is he, like I said, 150% focused like the Tom Brady we know from the past? No, he's not. And here's my thing, man. And I just, because we're not on the level of Tom Brady, like, why did you come back? You've won 7 Super Bowls. You are the greatest quarterback of all time. You've made all the money in the world. You have taken pay cuts with the Patriots and with the Buccaneers because you've already made all the money. Your wife, Gisele, makes 3 times as much money as you do, right? Like, you have absolutely, positively nothing, and I mean nothing, to prove to anyone in the world besides yourself. So clearly there's something inside of Tom Brady that he is trying to prove to himself. And apparently he is willing to do that and piss off his wife, piss off his kids and his family and friends and whoever else to achieve whatever is still inside of him that he thinks he needs to achieve to come back for at the age of 40 whatever and play in this game. So hell yeah, I think that this is affecting him. I don't want to say that he made the wrong decision because it's only, week 5. We've only seen 4 games and they're 2-2. But like I said, if you don't come in with that same mindset, like Tom Brady and Kobe Bryant and Serena Williams and Tiger Woods, those athletes, those people are on a different stratosphere, different planet than anyone else we've ever seen. Their focus, their intensity to their craft is the reason why they are so great and the reason why they've separated themselves from everyone else in their respective sports, right? So, like, I can't imagine a Serena Williams or a Kobe Bryant coming into a season training and just taking certain time off, or not coming in fully ready to give the sport exactly what they think it deserves. Like, just retire. Right? Like, we just saw it with Tua. What happens when Tom Brady gets knocked around and gets concussed one time? Like they're going to go from getting divorce lawyers to Gisele signing those divorce documents right away. That's what's going to happen. Like, Tom Brady gets one significant injury that is going to force him to not have the quality of life to be there for his family after this season. And you can pretty much write that divorce up right now, right? It seems like it's in limbo a little bit, but all it takes is one hit for Tom Brady to unfortunately get injured or something really bad to happen, and it's going to be Gisele's worst nightmare. So yes, I do think that it has a major effect. I won't ever say that Tom Brady made the wrong decision for coming back, but I mean, bro, like, what do you have to prove?
Jay, Tom Brady fucked up. He fucked up big time, man. He did. Because you forgot somebody on that list that you just mentioned. You mentioned the likes of Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Serena Williams, happy retirement, right? Tiger Woods. I don't know if you said Michael Jordan. I'll throw him on that list too.
I didn't, but yeah.
Tom Brady. You forgot about one of the biggest fashion icons of all time, Gisele Bundchen. Okay, and that's the big difference here. That's the big difference. Gisele isn't whoever Venus Williams' husband is. Gisele isn't Tiger Woods' multiple girlfriends and wives, right? Who's Michael Jordan married to? Who? I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know who Michael Jordan. If he is, no one famous, right? Vanessa Bryant, kind of famous, but not really, right? No way Kobe's listening to her, and you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not. If he gets divorced from Vanessa, it's like, okay, they have kids together, but like not that big of a deal, right? Gisele Bundchen has a career of her own, and she does not need Tom Brady. Okay? No disrespect to any of the other husbands, spouses, girlfriends I just mentioned, but those guys and women they don't need you. Okay? Gisele Bundchen doesn't need Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady needs Gisele more than a lot of people think. But in the vein of you talking about the ultimate athlete, that also a lot of those traits of the people that you just mentioned, selfishness and the ultimate competitor. Yeah, I think Tom Brady almost saw this as a competition. Hey, my wife's a little pissed at me. Let me go out. I'm going to go out there at 45 years old. I'm going to win the Super Bowl. Nope. Ain't going to happen, Tom. Ain't going to happen. Did you want Chris Godwin's injury to flare up again? Did you predict that? No. Did you expect Mike Evans to go too far and get suspended? No. You know what I'm saying? Like that. It's just, you can't.
Like their offensive line being completely ravaged by injuries.
Oh, that's probably the worst one.
Retirement. Yeah. So Tom Brady's not getting the protection that he normally is. And newsflash, Tom Brady is no Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson. So
no.
He could be running around evading Aaron Donald and evading the rush that comes to him.
Yeah, but I think ultimately what I'm saying is, you know, Tom Brady has had the perfect life. Literally. Jared Smith, I think we can agree. If you said when we were like 10 years old, hey, you're going to win 7 Super Bowls, you're going to be considered one of the best players, or if not the best football player to ever live, one of the best athletes to ever live, you're going to marry the #1 supermodel in the world, have kids, all this stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a good life to me. And so Tom Brady's had the perfect life. And that's all going away. No more football. Probably not going to win a Super Bowl again, as it looks like right now. Lose your wife? How does that not affect the team? How does that not affect the best player on your team? Come on. So, yeah, I think this absolutely is affecting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I hope for Tom Brady's sake and the Buccaneers' sake, they turn it around. But Jared, as an Arizona Cardinals fan, someone that needs to make the playoffs, I don't mind the Buccaneers sliding down the ranks.
I don't give a damn. I can care less about this. This is
Gisele, break up with his ass.
Let's make one thing clear right now.
Yeah.
We just gave our spiel about what we think is going on. I don't actually give a shit about whether they get divorced or whether they stay together or whether the Bucs do well or whether the Bucs don't do well. That we're doing this because this is a show and this is entertaining and this is what we need to talk about. But Tom Brady, I'm sure, will be just fine if he's no longer with Gisele. Now, from his kids' perspective, I feel kind of bad for his kids because obviously they're in such a big spotlight, and wherever they go, the kids are probably getting random questions and stuff that they shouldn't have to answer. So I feel bad for the kids. But I don't feel 1 ounce bad for Tom Brady or Gisele, right? Because at the end of the day, Tom Brady is the one that chose to do this. Gisele, she obviously has lived with it up until this point, potentially. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I mean, this is definitely Tom Brady's last year, but it's like, I don't know, man.
But Jared, what if it isn't? What if he goes, I don't have to care about my kids anymore? Like, what if he literally goes, I don't have a wife, my kids are gone half the week, I don't give a shit. Like, hey, Gisele, take the kids from Friday to Sunday. I'll take care of them during the week. Like, seriously, what if he comes back next year? He looks like shit this year. Yeah.
Here's something we haven't
brought
up yet.
Go ahead.
He's still got that like $350 million offer from Fox or whoever it was to go and announce. So he decided to postpone that. He didn't decline it. Like, that's still on the table whenever he so chooses to. But like, he chose to put that on hold and play one more year and potentially put himself at risk, when I'm sure Gisele was on her knees saying, babe, go take that 350 and become a broadcaster, and we don't have to worry about your health anymore, and you get to come home every single night and be with the kids and spend more time. So he postponed that $350 million, guaranteed. Whether he blows a lung or whether he pulls a Chris Collinsworth and has no voice or whatever, $350 million guaranteed. And he postponed that. So
Jared, do you know what sounds better than 7? 8. He wants that 8th championship, right? He's already beaten Michael Jordan in championships, right? Like, it don't matter. Maybe he's going after Bill Russell. Maybe that's who he's going after. He's like, I'm going to win as many championships as Bill Russell. Maybe I want to play till I'm 50. What a crazy scenario. But yeah, the Cover 2 podcast does not care about this. We just had to talk about it. Okay, Jared, let's move on. There's a lot going on in the NFL. We just talked about the Buccaneers, talked about the Dolphins. Their quarterbacks' heads aren't where they're at for multiple different reasons, right? But let's talk about who's good and who's not good in the NFL. We tried to do this 2 weeks ago with Alex Silva. It didn't work out because we were having so much fun. There was a lot to talk about. We were going long. What you guys didn't realize is we recorded for almost 2.5 hours, and we had to cut down that podcast to be about an hour and a half. So you missed a lot. But Jared, I think it's appropriate now because of what's happened in week 4. We're 25% now through the year. Let's talk about who's good or not. Okay, guys, we have 12 teams that we're gonna say. We're gonna go about a minute or less, and we're gonna tell you why we think that team's not good or good. Okay, and they're all teams that have pretty good records. So we're not talking about any like 1-3 teams. There might be one I slip in at the end as a secret against Jared, but it's all going to be 2-2 and above teams, and we're not mentioning the Buccaneers, Dolphins, Bills, or Chiefs. Okay, we already talked about enough about what we think about the Buccaneers and the Dolphins, and there's a lot of questionable scenarios, but we've already talked about them. And guys, come on, the Bills and Chiefs are really good, so we're not talking about them either. These are all teams that are questionable. So Jared, why don't you let me who the first team I'm gonna talk about is?
Nick Nenad.
Yes.
Good or not good? The Los Angeles Rams.
Jared, they're not good. Jared, the Rams aren't good. Okay, their only good player on the offense is Cooper Kupp. They have no running game whatsoever. The receiving core is not what it was last year. You guys need Odell. The defense is great, but defenses can only take you so far. I think Matt Stafford has regressed. I think he's clearly injured. I have inside information to know that he is injured. So I'm going to stick with that. When I say not good, can this team make the playoffs? Maybe. Is this team a Super Bowl contender? Absolutely not. Jared,
okay.
Good or not good? The San Francisco 49ers.
Can I flip a coin? Because I don't know, man. I really don't. I mean, from Monday night, from last night's game, yeah, the 49ers looked really good. Like, they spanked the Rams. Like, that game, I think it was like 24-9, and it didn't even really seem that close. That 49ers team, yes, is good. Do I trust Jimmy G? No. Do I trust Coach Kyle Shanahan? Yes. So can I literally flip a coin? Because it depends on who you ask me on the 49ers as to whether I think they're good. I'm going to say yes, because at the end of the day, I trust that Kyle Shanahan will get that offense going. And that defense with defensive coordinator D'Amico Ryans is pretty damn good, right? You've got Bosa on the edge. You have Fred Warner. Their secondary is a little suspect, kind of young and not too many proven players on the back end. But I'll say yes, but it's not a confident, like, oh, yeah, they're going to easily, like, they will make, I can see the 49ers making the playoffs, but I do not see them, getting past 1 or 2 wins in the playoffs. So, yes, but I'm not totally sold. Nick Nenad is an interesting one here. Good or not good? Philadelphia Eagles.
Jared, this team's good. This team is
okay. Good.
This team's good. Jared, this team's good. Great offensive line. They replenished their defense in the offseason. That's what they splurged on. They went and got Jalen Hurts talent. And guess what? Somehow, everybody's good, right? I think teams should do this more with quarterbacks. I think a lot of times quarterbacks in the NFL end up just being bad because they never had talent. Look what happened with Tua. He's having a better season when you add Tyreek Hill. They gave Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. He's had 2 years under his belt, 3 years under his belt, whatever it is, as a starting NFL quarterback. This team's good, Jared. This team's really good. Okay, Jared, good or not good? Mr. Ayahuasca and the Green Bay Packers.
This team's good. Listen, like they stumbled week 1 and looked like absolute shit. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, is Aaron Rodgers, did that ayahuasca, did he take too much of it? What happened? Is he still on it? We weren't really sure what was going on. They have since won 3 straight games. They are 3-1. Their defense looks pretty damn good, even though they looked very suspect last week against the 3rd string backup for the New England Patriots. But I will say, when you don't have any film on someone, especially a quarterback, you don't really know. The offense changes. You're not really sure what you're going to see. So the Green Bay Packers are good. Their defense is very good. I think they have a great 2-headed monster at the running back position. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, here's the thing with them. Can their young receivers continue to progress, right? Like, if they can continue to progress and learn the offense and get better, and Aaron Rodgers can trust his receivers down the line, I think this team has a chance to potentially go all the way. But, yes, they're a good team. My turn. I forgot. I got to say it here. Good or not good? The Denver Broncos.
Jared, this team's not good. This team's not good. I'm sorry, Alex. You guys can't keep scoring 16 points a game. You can't average less than 20 points a game in 4 games and tell me you're good. I get you got Patrick Surtain. I get you got a good defense. But Russell Wilson does not run anymore. He's over the hill. This offense isn't good. You just unfortunately lost Javonte Williams, so now you got Fumble Gordon Jr. as your number 1 running back. Okay? Jared, in the AFC, I don't know. Remember we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The Raiders get a couple wins. I said the Broncos were the worst team in this division. I'm starting to look. I'm going to stick with it. I'm not wrong about this. The Denver Broncos are not good. They're not going to make the playoffs. Jared, good or not good? The Los Angeles Chargers.
They're the Chargers. And what I mean by that is they're good and they're not good. The Chargers are – I am so happy. Like, I'm a Cowboys fan, and so I think the Chargers are the closest thing to the Cowboys, where every single offseason you come into it and you look on paper and you say, damn, this Chargers team has all the talent in the world. Like, look what they brought in the offseason, right? They bring in J.C. Jackson. They signed him for like a $90 million contract. They bring in Khalil Mack to pair him with Joey Bosa off the edge. Obviously, offensively, you have Herbert. You've got all the weapons offensively. Like, this team on paper should be freaking elite. And I know that you're in a good conference, obviously, or a good division with the Chiefs and the Raiders and the Broncos. But and the injury bug has hit them hard. And they just always find random ways to either lose games or games are super close. So they got blown out by the Jaguars a couple weeks ago. And yeah, maybe the Jaguars are a little better this year. but it's still the Jaguars. So I'm going to say not good. I'm going to say not good, man. I can't trust him. I want to. I like Justin Herbert. Paper, I want to trust him. But when they kick off and they play, I just cannot trust that this Chargers team is going to consistently win games. And then I can see them making the playoffs, and they're going to get bounced. So Chargers are not good. Good or not good? The New York Football Giants.
The New York Football Giants are not good right now because they don't have a quarterback and they're getting injured. But I think this team's kind of good when they're healthy. They're kind of good. Hard to say right now. But I think Brian Dable's got a good team over there. You just can't keep getting hurt. 3-1, going to London against the Packers, they'll be 3-2. When guys get healthy, maybe this team's good. Remember, NFC's a little easier to make playoffs, right? Jared Smith, Dallas Cowboys, good or not good?
Let's not mess around, man. Come on, this is a good team, okay? Listen, week 1, yeah, I would have said they were shit. You put up 3 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dak Prescott gets injured. The season looks like it's over. And then somehow with a backup quarterback in Cooper Rush, Mr. Rush Hour, they're now 3-0. This is a good team. Their defense is elite, in my opinion. You have players at every single level. Micah Parsons, you can put him anywhere on the field. Defensive end, linebacker, slot corner, anywhere you want. Strong safety, and he's going to be effective. You got Trayvon Diggs on the back end getting picks. This defense is leading this team. And offensive coordinator Kellen Moore has finally figured out, after 5 years, that when you run the ball with the good pairing of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, good things happen, right? Your quarterback, whether it's Dak Prescott or Cooper Rush, does not have to throw the ball 40 or 50 times in order for you to win the game. Now, I get Jerry Jones paid Dak Prescott all the money in the world, and you want Dak Prescott to be the reason why they win. But when you have a good offensive line, not great, but a good offensive line over and go through their running game. So, yes, the Cowboys are good, and when they get Dak Prescott back, they'll be even better. Nenad, good or not good? The Arizona Cardinals.
Jared, a win is a win. 2-2. Jared, this team's really not good in the first half. But we're really good in the second half. And Jared, we're really not good when we play a bunch of 5-5 receivers. But Jared, I think we're going to be really good when DeAndre Hopkins comes back. Jared, I have no idea. I have no idea if this team's good. Okay, there is so many questions about this team. Let's go. I don't like the differential for points. Cardinals are not good, but they might be good. I don't know. Jared Smith, good or not good? The 3-1 Minnesota Vikings.
Another tough. I feel like I'm getting all the tough ones here. They're good. They are. They have offensively like all the weapons you would ever need. Justin Jefferson, who is vying to be the best receiver in the NFL. Dalvin Cook at running back. Their offensive line is a little suspect, but obviously you guys still have Adam Thielen. Their defense is playing good enough. Like, they're not great. They're not going to stop teams all the time. But when you have that great of an offense, your defense just needs to be average. The problem I have with them is Kirk Cousins. I did not believe in Kirk Cousins. I've never believed in Kirk Cousins. I will never believe in Kirk Cousins for as long as he's still in the NFL. And that is my hesitancy. But they are a good team. I can see them making the playoffs. But because of Kirk Cousins, he's going to make a bad interception, or he's going to make enough bad plays to where he's going to hold this team back. This team is potentially a quarterback away from making the Super Bowl. So they're a good team, but Kirk Cousins is not good, and that is going to hold them back. Nenad, good or not good? The Cincinnati Bengals.
This team's good. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. This team's good. They had a tough start to the year, but they still have Joey Burrow at quarterback. They still got Jamar Chase, who hasn't even done much to start the season. Okay, and they're still 2-2. Solid defense. The offensive line will improve, you think. It's a good team. It's a good team.
Okay.
Jared Smith.
Okay.
Jared Smith. Good or not good? The Baltimore Ravens.
Man, this might be the toughest one. I hate to say this, Nick. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're that good. Now, hear me out. Lamar Jackson, I got you on fantasy. Like, you've been lighting it up for me. I appreciate you.
Same.
I wish you would have done a little more against the Bills last week, but we're gonna let it slide. You've been killing it. The running game is not what we thought. Like, this offense and this team is based around Lamar Jackson and building a solid running foundation. And this team, the history of the Baltimore Ravens is built on their defense. Like, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed right now must be pissed beyond belief because this defense cannot stop anyone. They gave up 38 points to the Dolphins, right? They blew like that 21-point lead at home a couple weeks ago. They gave up 26 points to the Patriots, and that offense is garbage, right? Mac Jones got injured in that game. And then they obviously give up a big lead. I think it was 17-0 against the Bills, and they let Josh Allen come back. Now, obviously, they're a very good offense, but still, when you have a double-digit lead at home, and you're the Baltimore Ravens, that your history is built on having a great defense, they cannot stop anyone. So Lamar Jackson is great, and he is Superman, but I don't even think Lamar Jackson can carry this team. The Baltimore Ravens are not good.
Yeah, Jared. It's there's a lot of teams. It's interesting right now in the NFL. Who's good, who's not good. But a little shocker there with the Ravens at the end. But you know what? They haven't been playing as well, and maybe some teams are getting used to that one-dimensional 12 personnel style that they run. It's kind of interesting. We'll see. Sunday Night Football is the Bengals and Ravens this week, so big game there. I'm excited to watch that one for sure because it's 2-2 teams, and I think it will tell a lot about both teams if one team kind of runs away with that game. Jared, time to switch up football a little bit. We're not going to be talking about the pros. We're going to be talking about college. I got a lot to say about the top 25 rankings, specifically the top. Okay? Let me just explain this real quickly before Jared and I start going over this. Okay? I have created a top 15 in college football that are the 15 best teams. Okay? It's what it is. I tried to do 16 through 25. But there's so many games this week, I'll mention them really quickly, that will affect the rankings. I said there's no point. I believe these are the 15 best teams. After doing research, I have no doubt about these 15 teams. None of the teams below them I thought were on the level of these 15 teams. So 16 through 25, 16 through 125 is not better than these 15 teams. So, games like Tennessee at LSU, games like Utah at UCLA, games like number 17 TCU at number 19 Kansas. These rankings are based off the AP poll. Those games will affect so much of what happens with the 16 through 25. Some of them may jump to the front, right? If Utah loses, if Tennessee loses, right? If TCU and Kansas, both two undefeated teams, win, they might jump in front of some of the one-loss teams. So I didn't do 16 through 25. It was too difficult. It's too much going on this week with the other games. Plus, throw Texas A&M in there. If they somehow upset Alabama, they'll have to be added in the top 25 again. So just 15 through 1. Jared, tell them how this is going to go as well.
All right. We're going to do 15. We're going to do 5, 5, and 5, right? So we're going to go 15 to 11, 10 to 6, 5 to 1. Give y'all a little chance to breathe, process what we're talking about here. We're not going to go long on each team. We might not even talk about each team. We're just going to get Nick's rankings. I'm going to blast in because I can already tell that they're probably wrong. I also have pulled up the AP top 25 as well. And so I have what the AP top 15 currently is. And Nick will give his Nick Nenad AP top 15, and we will discuss, we will compare, and at the end of the day, we'll see how good or how not good Nick's rankings really are.
Now, Jared, you made a mistake there, though. Again, this is not the Nick Nenad AP Top 25 poll. This is the Top 15 poll.
Oh, my bad.
That's what
Sorry,
this is.
my bad.
Yeah.
My bad. I screwed up. See, that's why
This is the 15.
you're always correct.
This is the 15 best college football teams in the order they should be. That's what this is.
Let's go.
Okay, let's start it off. Number 15, Wake Forest, 4-1. Number 14, NC State, 4-1. Number 13, Oregon, 4-1. Number 12, Utah, 4-1. And number 11, Kentucky at 4-1. Okay, you guys are probably wondering, why is Kentucky above Utah and Oregon? This one's easy. Okay, very easy. Kentucky beat Florida in Florida. Utah lost to Florida in Florida. They have the same record. Utah does not have a win against a ranked team this season, as well as Kentucky. But I'm sorry, how do you put a team that lost at the same spot above another team? Because their talent? No, that's stupid. Okay, so Kentucky is number 11 because they have to be in front of Utah. Okay, they have to. And Oregon, I think they're just not as good as Utah. Very similar records. They have a big win at BYU. I think they have a solid road win at Washington State. But they got blown the fuck out by Georgia. And so that's going to keep them away from Utah. NC State, Wake Forest, 2 big losses to Clemson. I think the reason Wake Forest is behind NC State because NC State competed a little bit more against Clemson, and Wake Forest took them to OT. Wake Forest has a pretty odd win that a last-second win against Liberty. They only won because Liberty went for 2 and didn't get it. So there's the potential that Wake Forest is a 3-2 team, but they won, and Liberty is actually a pretty solid team. Let me mention Malik Willis. That's where he came from. So their record is pretty good so far. So I'm going to keep them there. But as far as 11 through 15 goes, Kentucky number 11, 12 Utah, 13 Oregon, 14 NC State, 15 Wake Forest.
I was waiting for you to slip up early on so I could just kind of shame you right away and just get this really off to a good start. I'm kind of stumped right now because I don't know if I can disagree with you. I 100% agree that Kentucky should be ahead of Utah. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say that they should be 11, but you're right. When Utah loses at Florida and then Kentucky wins at Florida, Kentucky, with the same record, both teams 4-1, Kentucky should be ahead of them. Kentucky also with a very close loss to Ole Miss. It's not like they got blown out. And realistically, they probably should have won that game anyway. So, yeah, Kentucky is for real. We know how good Kentucky is with basketball, and we always think of Kentucky as a basketball school. But this Kentucky Wildcats football team is for real. Now they're getting into SEC play. They got South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Tennessee coming up on the schedule. So I think that Tennessee is going to be a real big game for them. But yeah, I definitely agree Kentucky should be ahead of Utah. I'm pretty much okay with everything else being as is. Like I said, I want to not be right now, and I'm sure I will as we get into this 10 through 6. But, so far, good job, buddy. I got to hand it to you.
There you go. I like it. And maybe if you guys, Oregon ahead of NC State and Wake Forest, because Wake Forest and NC State both lost to Clemson. I think Oregon, that giant, they murdered BYU, who a lot of people think are a good team. So, again, I kind of attribute that Georgia blowout loss to a road game for a Pac-12 team on the East Coast with no preseason against the defending national champions. You shouldn't have got blown out, but they've clearly been a very, very good team since then. So, NC State, Wake Forest, I don't know about the rest of these ACC teams, and NC State, remember, they should have lost to ECU. ECU missed a field goal and an extra point that were just chip shots. So if that's a competent kicker, NC State is 3-2. So again, I put Oregon ahead of NC State and Wake Forest because potentially Wake Forest and NC State could have been 3-2 teams, right?
I will say though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oregon did have. They beat Washington State at Washington State, but that was 44-41. Like,
but Washington State's a good. Washington State, they beat Wisconsin on the road. I know Wisconsin's not the best team this year, but for a Pac-12 team to go into a Big Ten team school, and with those 80,000 fans and those kids that don't do anything but farming at home, that's tough. You know, remember they're from Pullman, Washington. It's the middle of nowhere. Okay, nobody gives a fuck about football up there. So, again, all this is fluid. When I do these rankings next week or the week after, if I disagree with the AP poll,
okay, Stephen A. Smith.
If I do that, then I'm going to react to these other teams. You know, if Michigan State, who's 2-3, ends up being really bad, right? Then Washington's win doesn't matter as much either. So it's why I didn't want to put UCLA in the top 15 or TCU or Kansas, because they haven't. I would have
slapped you if you did that.
Yeah. Well, but
through the camera.
If UCLA had blown out South Alabama, there's no reason to think with their win against Washington that they're not a top 15 team. But because they had to kick a winning field goal against South Alabama at home, it's tough.
And then go in the locker room and celebrate like you just won the national championship.
Exactly.
That is just.
Were you okay? Hey, were you okay with them celebrating against Washington? Was that okay on Friday? That was very impressive on Friday.
That was good, yes. But I'm just saying, at home against South Alabama, and you're in the locker room, freaking like, you know, spraying water or champagne or whatever the hell they're spraying, like they just won the championship. It's like, yeah, come on. You're undefeated. Okay, good for you. You beat Washington. You get a tough game this week against Utah, and then you get Oregon as well on the road. So we're going to find out real quick about UCLA.
Yeah, and that's why there's no reason to put them in the rankings. Because if they beat Utah and they beat Oregon, they're a top 10 team, Jared. Okay. Sneaking into the top 10. Let's do 10 through 6. Number 10. 5-0. The USC Trojans. Number 9. 5-0. Penn State. Number 8. 5-0. Ole Miss. Number 7. 4-0. Oklahoma State. And number 6, 4-0, Tennessee. Woo! Let me explain myself a little bit. There's a lot.
Please.
There's a lot to go over with this one, okay? You're probably wondering why USC is number 10. They've had 4 easy wins. They have a road win against Oregon State. That's it. 2 road wins is good. A lot of teams in the top 5 haven't played a road game yet. But USC has not beaten a team that they should not have. And Oregon State, with their bad loss to Utah, may not be that good of a win anyways. So USC essentially has just cakewalked through their schedule. They are 5-0, so I put them above Kentucky. But they have not proven anything. As far as Tennessee being number 6, okay? Hear me out on this one. The team's been extremely impressive, okay? They have a big road win against a good Pittsburgh team, and they have a big win against Florida, who's proven to be a solid team this year, okay? That's something that Oklahoma State hasn't done. That's something that Ole Miss hasn't done, besides their win against Kentucky. Those 2 wins are more impressive than the 1 win the other teams behind them have, or the 0 big wins that USC had. Oklahoma State has only beaten Baylor. Baylor at this point is an unranked to barely ranked team. Okay? Ole Miss, 4 very easy wins, and then a big win against Kentucky. Okay? And Penn State, easy wins, road win against Purdue, blowout against Auburn, who we don't really know who's good, very good. There's no reason why Tennessee shouldn't be above these teams. So I think Tennessee, based on their schedule, should be the 6th best team that is undefeated.
I'm okay with putting Tennessee at 6 and bumping USC down. But here's my thing. And I get what you say about Ole Miss's record and Oklahoma State's record. If we just look at rosters and coaches and just put these teams literally side by side, you're gonna tell me that Ole Miss and Oklahoma State, you would pick them to beat USC in a head-to-head?
At this point, again, I don't. Okay, so when you look at the rosters of these teams, though, I get USC's roster is good, but their run defense is not very good. Okay, and
fair.
Because it's the only reason they haven't lost at this point, in my opinion, is because their run defense did enough against bad teams. But I fear that when they play an Ole Miss who has Zach Evans and a freshman running back that's awesome, I fear that when they play Penn State, Sean Clifford, might run all over them, right? And the RPO is not going to work. I fear that Oklahoma State and Spencer Sanders would run all over USC. So that's where I'm getting that, Jared. I think that when you compare, I'm not doing these rankings based off the rosters, because if you look at rosters, there's plenty of teams that you could argue should be number one just because of their roster. Will Levis, Kentucky is 4-1. He's the number one quarterback overall pick in the NFL draft, a lot of people say. Does that mean that he should be number two? Nah, right? Will Levis is way better than Ole Miss's quarterback and Spencer Sanders and, Caleb Williams. He's better than Caleb Williams, too. So should he be ahead of those teams? No, but his quarterback value. So I'm saying I don't think USC's roster is as good as you're saying. I think you have Williams-Addison syndrome. you see Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison running all over the field against bad football teams. Okay, I love it. USC is back, right? Offensively, this is what we've been missing for so long. I love it, but they have not proven anything. Again, though, they can prove it against Utah. They can prove it against UCLA. They can prove it against Notre Dame. And again, this is the problem with USC not having that difficult of a schedule. If all these teams above them do the same thing and they all remain undefeated, there's absolutely no reason why USC should be ahead of them, because you've got to think about the game. This is not, this is not the NFL. It's based on who your schedule is. If this was the NFL, USC being 5-0 would be number 6. But they're not. Maybe number 1. They'd be tied number 1 with Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, and Ole Miss. I'm just saying. Any other debates about 6 through 10?
I'll give you that. That's all I have, man. We're starting to get into, I don't want to say elite teams, but obviously these teams have, this is where to me this starts, right? When we get week 4, week 5, when we get into conference play, when we're done playing the cupcake teams and blowing teams out by 60 points, okay, we've had enough time to rev up, and now it's really time to play. So these next couple weeks, I think we're really going to find out, and we're going to potentially have teams separate themselves once they start playing better competition of, okay, is your record a real reflection of how good your team is, or was your record a reflection of just playing crappy-ass teams? And now once you started to play great teams, you guys actually fall off. So we'll find out in the next few weeks. But yeah, other than that, let's move on. Let's go 5-1.
5-1. Ooh. Now this one was actually the easiest one. Very easy, actually, top 5. Okay. Number 5, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Number 4, the Michigan Wolverines. Number 3, the defending champion Georgia Bulldogs. Number 2, the Clemson Tigers. And number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And let me just say this. You could have an argument, which we will, about Alabama and Clemson being 1A and 1B instead of 1 and 2. Now let me explain myself. The reason Ohio State is number 5 when some people have them being number 1 They have 4 extremely easy wins. They have a win against Notre Dame at home that does not look as good anymore. And they've played literally 5 home games out of 5 games. Michigan has 3 very easy wins. They have a solid win against a Maryland team that is better than people think, and a solid road win versus Iowa. Jared? Because they beat Iowa on the road, that is the only reason they're ahead of Ohio State. Talent-wise, which would be the only thing to go with next, because these teams are so similar. Obviously, I think Ohio State is a better talent team. But because they have literally not one impressive win at this point and have not played on the road, Michigan went on the road to Iowa, which is historically a very difficult place to play. That is what puts them at number 4, okay? Georgia, defending national champion. Talk about talent. Very impressive. 3 easy wins, a big blowout win versus what I think is a very good Oregon team. But my God, that game last week. You can't go on the road at Missouri, who's a very, very bad team, and barely win. I don't care what happens. I don't care who got injured. You had most of your weapons for that game. That can't happen. What that was, Jared, is, boring schedule, and you fell asleep, okay? You fell asleep. You didn't like a night road game in the state of Missouri. That wasn't fun for you. But that affects them. Now to come to Alabama and Clemson, okay? Alabama is number 1 because they have 3 easy wins. They have a big, impressive win without their quarterback most of the game against Arkansas, who I think is a solid team. Not a great team, but a solid team. And they have a close road win versus Texas in that just horrible atmosphere to play in. Okay? Clemson, 3 easy wins, and 2 big wins against NC State and Wake Forest, who are 15 and 14 in my rankings right now. They beat Wake Forest on the road as well. Wake Forest could end up in the top 10 this year if they don't lose another game. Maybe in the top 5. Who knows? NC State, very solid defense, and that was impressive. They really beat NC State by 17 last Saturday. I think DJ Uyunglele has figured it out, and that's what makes this so dangerous. We're on a collision course for modern day versus St. John Bosco here, okay? Bryce Young at Alabama, Clemson. The reason I have Alabama ahead, even though they technically could have lost, and they almost lost to a backup at Texas, is because this is where I put talent over everything. Because for a backup fucking quarterback to come in for Alabama and just continue to smoke Arkansas's defense, I don't think Clemson's backup quarterback would have done that. I don't think Georgia's backup quarterback would have done that. I don't think Michigan's backup quarterback would have done that. And I don't think Ohio State's backup quarterback. So right now, Alabama's talent is so good, I don't see them losing another game until potentially the SEC championship against Georgia, or the Final Four. So at this point, Alabama to me is the best team. You put your backup quarterback in, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. Come on. That trumped that close win against Texas. But feel free to debate me on these. But this was the easiest one for me because these team schedules are so fucking easy. It's easy to do it. It's easy to do it. Plus, let me say this. Let me say this. Clemson, their schedule is very, very easy for the rest of the year. They've done what they needed to do. So they will move down this list. But based on who they've beaten right now, when the Georgias beat the Kentuckys or the Ole Misses, and when Michigan beats Penn State, and Ohio State beats Michigan State and Penn State, they will move ahead of Clemson. But right now, based on what they've done in their schedule, this is what I have to put Clemson up there. And arguably, they could be number 1 as well.
So I was going to start with Michigan, but we'll start off with Clemson just because we just talked about them. I would not even consider putting Clemson there, not 1B, ever. I'm okay with Clemson being 5 because of the eyeball test. And you can say that they've had 2 quality wins, right, with at Wake Forest, where they still gave up 45 points. And to me, I'm sorry, Wake Forest, yeah, they're ranked, but you don't give up 45 points if you're Clemson. Like, your defense is better than that. I don't care if you lost Brett Venables to the head coach at Oklahoma. You're still Clemson. You still recruit extremely well, and I don't think a team of that caliber should ever give up 45 points. Like, does Alabama ever give up 45 points? Does Ohio State ever give up 45 points? No, those teams just don't do it. So That to me, we want to go with the win's a win. In college football, you got to win with some type of style. You have to win with a little flair. And so far, I haven't really seen that from Clemson. I agree with you, and you almost changed my mind because Clemson's schedule out, because the fact that they've played 2 ranked teams and one of them being on the road, you almost changed my mind and put them ahead. But when I just look at their eye test and from what I have seen of their live games so far, I don't believe in this Clemson team. I don't think that DJ, I'm not even going to pronounce his last name, has figured it out. I think he's a good quarterback and he has the but I think if he goes up against a great defense, Clemson's going to fall. So I think Clemson is at 5 because they just haven't really been dominating like they should. Like, yeah, Wake Forest, like I said, ranked. That should not have been a 51-45 game. That should have been a 51-20 game. So to me, I don't think Clemson is asserting their dominance like they should. I think for how good you think they should be playing better, and the scores of these games should be reflecting that more than they have. So that's why I would keep Clemson at 5. And the fact that the rest of their schedule is now they do have to go to Notre Dame. That'll, Notre Dame it'll still be somewhat of a test. But yeah, their schedule, I'm keeping them at 5. You actually flipped me, and I agree with you with Michigan, Ohio State, because Michigan had that road game at Iowa. And if I'm not mistaken, 100%. The last 3 or 4 times that Michigan went to Iowa, Iowa won. So this is the first time that Michigan has beat Iowa in some damn time. So I will give you that currently as stated, Ohio State needs to go on the road. Like, and I did say this last week before Michigan played Iowa, Michigan's first 4 games were at home as well. Like, I don't understand why these teams, like, go on the road and play, like, the first 2 weeks of the season, okay, you want to have home games, that's fine. But we are now going into week 6 and Ohio State hasn't played a road game? Like, what the fuck? Like, come on, guys. Like, what, you can't go on the road and play a road game? And for Michigan, for it to be week 5 and it's your first road game, that to me is a little skeptical as well. But I will put Michigan ahead. I will put Ohio State at 4. I would have Michigan at 3. And then I have Georgia 2, Alabama 1. The way that Georgia played and the fact that they should have lost to Missouri, that to me is a little bit alarming. Like, I still go back to the Oregon game and think, holy shit, like, if Georgia could play like that, there's no one that could beat Alabama. Can't even beat them. But when Alabama loses Bryce Young and their backup comes in and they don't necessarily miss a beat and that defense is as good as we think it is, Alabama deserves to be number 1 right now. Georgia, because of their poor play last week, deserves to be bumped down to number 2. So I would go Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4, Clemson 5.
And here's my thing about that. This is what I just don't understand about it. It's again, like, Clemson in a couple weeks. Well, actually, maybe, because when you actually look at Clemson's schedule, they play, I think it's a cakewalk. Let me just check it real quick. I think it's a cakewalk. I just had it up, but I changed the games. Cakewalk game against Boston College. Boston College is not good. It's on the road, but it's, that will be a win. It's not cold enough weather in Boston to affect them yet. Then they play at Florida State. Now, Florida State has a loss on their record thanks to Wake Forest now, but Florida's at Florida State. I think those fans are down now. Like, those fans are ready to go.
That'll be tough.
If they see Clemson coming down, and that will be Clemson's, they won at Wake Forest, but they struggled to give 45 points on defense, like you said. And there's a chance they could have lost that game, but they didn't. And Florida will be coming in with, well, actually, no. Look at this. Look at this, Jared. Florida State plays at NC State their next game. So if they beat NC State, I mean, that's a legitimate.
They'll be ranked.
And at that point too, Clemson already beat NC State, so that does not mean that they're necessarily going to beat Florida State. So their schedule isn't that bad, but again, it fluctuates. I'm basing this on what everyone's done, right? And so far, I can't put Michigan and Ohio State above a Georgia or Clemson because they've just had more impressive wins. I get the argument that Georgia, with that blowout win of Oregon and being 5-0, that they should be number 1. But that Missouri game, Like 100%, Jared, Clemson would not be number 3 if Georgia had just blown out Missouri. There's no reason to think that Georgia is not defending national championships talent-wise would be worse than Clemson. Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at a lot of the scores for Clemson, it's a lot of like 28-point wins, a lot of 30-point wins because they run the ball a lot. And they take off a lot of the clock. It's not normal college football. I get it. You said style points. That's why you want USC higher. That's why you don't want Penn State anywhere near the rankings. That's why you don't want Clemson. It's not sexy. I agree. I watched that game yesterday. I watched it Monday because, number one, I missed it. But number two, I was like, this is not going to be entertaining. So let me just get through this and see how it works. And that's what I did, right? But, it's interesting. I don't think I'm much wrong. But, again, a lot can change. A lot can change this.
And I think a lot will. Like I said, as we get into conference play, as we are now getting into week 6 and teams are starting to play relevant teams, not just cupcakes, the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to determine a lot. I think we will probably, in my opinion, see the most change in the standings in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because we will find out who these teams really are. If these teams are really legitimate, or if they just played shitty teams the first couple weeks and were able to get wins. We're going to find out. That the next 3 to 4 weeks will be the most fluctuation I think we will see in the standings, and then the last few weeks of the season it'll smooth itself out.
Yeah, and I'm telling you guys, you look at these SEC, okay? Like Alabama is going to earn their rank. Georgia's going to earn their rank. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can say that as much about Clemson or Michigan and Ohio State, right? But Michigan and Ohio State haven't done much yet, but they've been very impressive. You blow out teams, there's no reason to think you aren't a top 5 team. But these other teams have done more impressive. Just looking back at this week, again, the biggest games. This is the biggest game. Okay, so remember, based on my rank, the correct rank, the number 6 team in the nation is going to Louisiana. It's going to Baton Rouge this week. LSU is 4-1 because Florida State blocked their extra point to send them to OT. This team could easily be 5-0, and going into LSU, this is a fucking tough test for Tennessee. My God, this is hard. And it will say if they're real or not. If they lose to LSU, they're out of the top 10. Maybe they're 14. LSU has to go ahead of them at that point, right? And Tennessee isn't legitimate. And then you see the Ole Misses and the Oklahoma States moving forward, right? If Utah blows out UCLA, right? You got to think, okay, Utah, right? Even though they have one loss, that's a solid win on the road in Los Angeles, TCU at Kansas, that's obviously it's 2 undefeated teams, 2 very surprising teams. One of those teams will move up in the rankings, but to be honest, their schedules haven't been as good as the other teams, so I still don't see them moving into the top 10 with a win. And then if somehow Texas A&M in what could be in a really weird game where Texas A&M doesn't know who their quarterback is, Alabama might have to play their backup at quarterback. That game might not matter at all for the college football playoff, or it might matter a lot. And if Texas A&M last week, they made a ton of mistakes, and that's the reason they lost to Mississippi State. It's still a good coach team. There is a major rivalry between these 2 head coaches, but it's a good game. If Texas A&M does go into Alabama and beat them, even with 2 losses, I see them being kind of near the middle of the rankings. And at that point, we have to think a little bit less of Alabama because, right, you go on. But let's see. We'll just see. Texas A&M beat them last year, but those are the big games. As far as the ranked teams go, USC plays Washington State. We don't know how legitimate they are, but if they end up blowing out Washington State, maybe they move up the rankings. Michigan goes on the road against Indiana. They should win that game. Let's see. Georgia is at home against Auburn. After what happened last week, Auburn is not a very good team. They should beat the shit out of them. Oklahoma State plays a good Texas Tech team, but at home. Ohio State, their first road game of the year at Michigan State, right? You never know. It's a rivalry game. Clemson at Boston College, like I said, they should win that game. Moving down the rankings a little bit. That's really it.
Really quickly here. I just happened to pull up LSU's schedule because I forgot that they're ranked 25th. Holy shit. Like, talk about a schedule.
Yeah.
So
Look at Florida's next.
They're at home against Tennessee this week. Then they're at Florida. Then they're at home versus Ole Miss. Then at home versus Alabama. Then at Arkansas.
Oh.
Like, holy shit. If somehow, if they can, I mean, if they want to make it to the college football playoff, they obviously would have to go undefeated in that 5-game stretch. But if they can even come out 4-1 and like the one loss be super close, holy shit. Like, that is one of the toughest middle of the schedule seat. Like, wow, that's
well.
great.
So, like, hey, Jared, let's say this too. Like, we know they're well coached with Brian Kelly, right? Let's say they literally lose because their extra point is blocked against Florida State. Let's say Florida State ends up beating NC State, ends up beating Clemson, right? Who's to say this isn't the first 2-loss team to ever make the Final Four, right? And this is, again, why that 12-team playoff is going to be so entertaining, because teams like LSU, these SEC teams that have such brutal schedules, won't be punished for having brutal schedules, right? A team that loses twice, barely, and then beats Alabama and beats Tennessee in the same season should not be excluded from being the champion, right? We see this in the NFL. 12 teams make the playoffs, or 14 now, whatever it is, and right, that 12th team might win the Super Bowl because you play in the NFC West or the AFC West and you have more losses. Who fucking cares, right? So I love, if we're looking at the top 12 right now in my rankings, Utah, Kentucky, USC, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. Who's not to say that Utah couldn't go beat Ohio State? Or who's not to say that USC couldn't go in and beat we'd have USC versus Ole Miss. Jared, you'd get to see that game, right? Kentucky would go in with the number 1 quarterback in the nation against Tennessee or Michigan or whatever. That'd be entertaining. I'd love to see that. Right, so we'll see. It's going to be fun. But yeah, again, NC State at home against Florida State. That's a big game. Because again, if Florida State beats NC State, then that game against Clemson the next week is huge. And if NC State beats Florida State, that's more merit for NC State and that loss that Clemson has. So again, everything affects the rest of it. Number 12, Oregon goes into U of A. They should kill them too. That's another top game. If Oregon struggles against U of A, I got to move them down. But yeah, there's a couple good games.
We'll see, man. Like I said, the meat of the schedule is starting right now.
Oh yeah, I love conference play. Yeah, guys, that's it for this podcast. Again, there will absolutely be baseball stuff, big time baseball stuff talked about next week, whether it's a standalone MLB playoffs preview or while it's integrated into the podcast. There will be baseball content coming out at latest Monday, because the playoffs, I believe, start on Tuesday. So to get a preview of the playoffs, which will be, pretty good playoffs this year for baseball. You have really a lot of good top teams: Dodgers, Astros, Yankees, Mets, Braves. I mean, look at the Braves. The Braves have gone from a team that was in third place at one point this year to being 2 games ahead of the Mets and sweeping them at the end of the season and being the number 2 seed in the NL. So there's a lot of good teams this year in baseball. Aaron Judge is still not hit number 62 as of Wednesday afternoon. He plays in he's going to start right now. So maybe you'll follow the Cover 2 podcast. You maybe saw it via video. But yeah, baseball stuff coming up. And the next week, of course, we'll be talking about college football. We'll be talking about my UCLA Bruins upsetting Utah, okay, and moving in the top 10. I can't wait. We're talking about the USC Trojans beating the crap out of the Cougars. Jared, we'll be talking about your Dallas Cowboys going in and getting another win, hopefully. And oh boy, Cardinals get the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles coming into Arizona. Oh, I can't wait, Jared. If the Eagles lose to the Cardinals.
Please. Listen, I don't ask for much.
Yeah.
But I'm asking for your Cardinals to actually have a quality game.
I'm down.
And beat Philadelphia for me, please, if you can do that. Talk to Kyler Murray. tell him, listen, like, I'll take over your gaming for this week. I really need you to focus on the Eagles and get it done. All right. I'm also going to be at SoFi on Sunday for the Cowboys and Rams. So
I was just about to ask you. I was like, are you going to the game?
I will be there. Yes, I will be live at the game, rooting on my boys with Cooper Rush and Rush Hour. We'll see if he can make a Rush Hour 4. We'll see how that goes. I don't expect Dak to play, but I expect that defense to show up. I expect it to be a kind of lower scoring game than people think. But yes, I will be there live. Praying for a Cowboys win, and please just tell your Cardinals, take care of business at the Eagles. I'm tired of the Eagles being the only undefeated team in the NFL. The Eagles will get too much shine as it is. Tired of talking about them. Time for them to get in the lost call.
Jared, I don't mind if you guys beat the Rams either. I would love that.
Listen, let's make a bet. The Cowboys beat the Rams. The Eagles have to beat. I think both games are at 125.
At the exact same time.
They're both 125. All right, let's make that bet right now. Cowboys beat the Rams. Your Cardinals beat the Eagles. We'll both be happy. We'll both come on the show next week. We'll both be happy, smiling. A win is a win is a win.
Maybe I gotta go out to Arizona to root on my team. If you're gonna be rooting on your team all the way down from San Diego to LA, maybe I'll take that little 5-hour trip to Arizona.
There you go.
I got Sunday off this weekend, like I always do. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. We'll see. Okay, at the end of this podcast, though, a lot to talk about next week. It will be a big show no matter what. And watch out for us potentially being in some MLB playoff games as well. Jared, you'd be down in San Diego. The Padres can get it done and get into a series. I expect it to be somewhere down there, and I will definitely be going to a Dodger game. I just don't know which one. But they're locked in the division series already, and they got 2 home games guaranteed. So I will be at one of them. Most likely 2. But yeah, for this Cover 2 podcast, we are done. I am Nenad.
I am Jared Smith.
And we'll see you next week, guys.